Mecky, so I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave
and Mecky
on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, where it's more than just radio. So jump into the chat room if you can. And don't forget, this is show number 280.
Well, that doesn't really sound very good when I do it. It's not 80 and 200.
I was going to do it like the darts caller for 180.
I like it.
But I didn't. Anyway, look, it's on air. It's on air online and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. If you missed it, Solaris's show was Rolaris good. Rolaris good, I love that. Dr. Ro took it on. Ro took on Solaris's show and became Rolaris. And they had Steve Travesty on. There was another fellow. I'm so sorry, I missed your name. They were talking about Bitcoin and the collapse, or where they thought the collapse is going to come from. And one of the things, Mecky, I really liked about it was it's less a collapse and rather a shift. And I really liked that. That's what I took. That's my take home from their discussion. A very nice open discussion. It was tremendous. Well done, fellas. It only cost $5 a month. Did you know that? Just a cup of coffee per month to access the freedomslips.com archives. So if you are listening to this on YouTube, or you've caught up with this maybe at some other time, and you don't know who we're talking about when we're talking about Solaris, or Rolaris in this case, well, then you can just pay $5 a month. It's an easy deduction from your account. Doesn't matter. It supports the station, and you can do your thing for the station. But you get access to every single piece of archive there is there. All the other host shows, not just the one you want, but all of them are there. Then you can listen to them offline, and maybe it's more convenient for you. That's what I do. I listen in my car when I'm driving. I just think it's awesome. So, do that for me. Do it for Mecky. Do it for the other host. Do it for the station. Do it for the station owner.
Do it for me. Do it for me.
But do it for yourself.
Also for me.
and me. And if there's any money left over in just, a lazy 10 or something like that, you can come to our website and push the donate button.
1,000?
10,000.
10,000?
Million.
10,000 million? Ooh, I like
$10,000 million.
$10,000 million. That's
if you're one of the Illuminati and you're really considering the two of us as, I don't know, not puppets, but if you wanted to fund this so you can get your message out, hey, we're there. We are, as long as we can have to continue talking about whatever we want, then we'll accept any cash at all. Thank you very much.
But we're really bad at henchmaning. Yeah, we're not very good henchmen. I'm sorry.
Oh, do you have to do that?
Well, it goes with the territory, right?
I suppose it would have to. If someone's going to give you $10,000 million, I expect they're going to want something in return.
And henchmaning would be one of those things, right?
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Yes,
could be a minion.
Yes, boss.
A minion. I like
a minion. I like
the
minion. Yeah.
I can do that.
I can stick my tongue out and do that. Yeah.
I can do it twice as good. So it should be $20,000 million, please.
That's very funny.
Yeah, too much. It isn't, right? What? There are too many drugs in the water supply in Sydney today. That's what the problem
is.
There
clearly are. There clearly are too many drugs in. You know what, Mecky? I was watching a documentary where every single one of the antidepressants that go flush down the toilet, if you are able to recycle that toilet water, and drink it, you take out most of the heavy metals and everything else, except you leave behind the unfortunates, which are all the prescription medications. All the fish in your ocean near you are receiving all of this as well. But look, I failed, Meki. I failed something here, and that is I've not acknowledged, and I think I need to do this, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung, and where Meki lives, it's the Daruk people. And pay respects to elders past, present, and future. This is, in a way, a connection to the land. While Meki and I, I'm first generation. Meki, you're first generation. Yeah, living in Australia, as are so many other people.
Yeah. Oh yes.
We've got a leaf burning ceremony scheduled for later on in this year, which is going to give us a connection with. It's like smoking the peace pipe, I suspect, with the American native population in your area. However, this is it's similar. You're accepted into not the tribe here, but they have mobs and families and people. Look, I respect every last one of you, everyone here. Do you know what? Anyone that can live on Australia's continent for 85,000 years, because that's what the number is currently in science. Anyone that can do that for 85,000 years and not die due to everything here that kills you, and still survive where there's no fruit, there's no fruit, there's very few berries. Basically, you got to dig up, larvae from the ground under particular trees, and but abundant were kangaroo meat and goannas. So, but on the coastal fringe, a lot of pippies, those shelled, closed, clammy kind of things that live in the sand at the beach. So there was an abundant amount of food, but it just wasn't obvious. So anyone that can live in that situation, if you've watched Naked and Afraid, and those poor hapless souls who are from the city, live 21 days without anything, good luck. These folk here in Australia live with nothing, I'll tell you. And look, hunter-gatherers and nomadic lifestyle is fine. You don't have to build a city, as long as you're looking after the land, and the land is the most important thing. Meki, I didn't even know I was standing on a soapbox.
You're soaping. It's okay as long as you know
soaping.
it's all right. It's all good. It's fine.
Look, if you see me hold my mug up, I do this every show. I hold my mug up. It's one of this is a 20 ounce mug, 600 ml. It takes. You can actually get this from Zazzle.com. The links are there in our YouTube. It's a SSO or Shiny Side Out branded mug with co-branded with Revolution Radio on it. Get yourself one. I mean, I love it. I've bought it for some friends of mine, and they go, "Hey, that is so big. Like, that's a big coffee. That's like a 4-shot coffee. If you like 3 or 4-shot coffees, or maybe you can just have some soup in it or something like that. Get yourself one. Get yourself one, because I think we make $1 off it or something, and every little tiny bit helps. Woo! What have we bought with it? Nothing.
We're thousandaires. We have thousands and thousands of pennies. Yes, that's what we got. Nothing. We haven't made a cent.
Not a cent.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Not a cent.
We run in the red. We're in the red. But that's all good. Look, I do this for the enjoyment. Meki, do you have... It's been a long week. It's been a big week. There's a lot of stuff going on. There was a meteor that came close to us, and we'd only discovered some, 12 hours prior. Isn't that nuts? With all the near-Earth objects going around,
but
just to go, wow, look out the front window. Here comes a rock.
The thing is this: if you're monitoring the sky, and the sky isn't just the horizon, if you will, the sky is all around us, guys. Mm-hmm. It's a 360, 3-dimensional thing all around us. Okay, and we have budget to maybe monitor 2 or 3 degrees of those 360 degrees all around us. So no, I'm not at all surprised. In fact, I'm astonished that we did see it come by. It's like, oh, we should have just seen it leave. Whoosh, oh, there it goes. What? Redshift. No, look.
I like the Doppler.
Look, guys,
like you worked the Doppler into that one. That was good.
I'll try to science as much as I can, but the joke's on us, really, because the biggest threat that we face potentially will come from outside the planet. I mean,
that's right.
And we don't even have a satellite defense system in place. We have the tech to do it, but all the satellites are facing inwards. So all the rockets are pointing at us, not the outside.
That's right.
Aha! You cannot escape. Oh, I tell you.
Mekki, did you see Iron Sky?
Yes, I did Iron Sky. Sorry, I did see it. It's funny.
It was very funny about the satellites, that everyone's weather satellites were militarized.
Yes.
I love that. And they all kept it completely secret for each other. That was just tremendous. That was probably one of the best parts of that entire movie. This week has been, like, if you live in New Zealand, if you're listening for New Zealand, we apologize profusely for the weather. See, because the weather goes from west to east in the southern hemisphere, particularly down at that latitude, and they just got hit with an absolutely massive rainfall, a huge storm, and it's caused mudslides and flooding like you see in southern Queensland. That's the kind of extent. Very rare. I mean, the southern island of New Zealand is very rocky. It's mountainous, and it's hard to flood something that's mountainous. But nonetheless, mudslides, roads cut off, a couple of meters of water, thousands of homes underwater, electricity cut off, essential services can't reach people. So I feel for you out there, and I just hope that the loss of life is nil, and that you can clean it up and get back to business. Because Mekki, they've been suffering some huge earthquakes where there weren't really previous any within the living history of New Zealand. The seafloor rose 3 meters or 4 meters or something like that recently due to one of those earthquakes, and you don't want to be there.
Completely agree.
But my segue is that's not the only place that are having earthquakes. Greece and Turkey have also had some massive earthquakes in the last week, and they're doing a huge cleanup. I mean, these are over 6 on the Richter scale, and it's every time there's a 0.1 at the end, it's times 10 stronger than the previous one, and that's something else. It's you just don't want to be there. Now, Greece has no money. They're suffering. They're suffering for the debt that they owe, and any kind of rebuilding project is going to be. I don't think anyone's going to really want to do it, because no one's going to see them as having any money to be able to perpetuate the rebuild process. Turkey, on the other hand, they're not doing as bad, but certainly the earthquakes aren't helping anyone. That whole region has a question mark over it, hasn't it? The EU. Go ahead, Mekki.
No, I was going to ask you a question. I can see you in a penguin suit here on Facebook, my friend. I was trolling Facebook as you do, and there you are, all black tied up. What happened? And how come I don't know about it? Where's my invitation anyway? You're not getting any of my $10,000 million. That's for sure.
Hey, don't think for a second that was. I'll tell you. Last night was my partner Belinda's 50th birthday. I had mine a few weeks ago.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Absolutely. So Belle turned 50, and we celebrated last night, and it was really good. We went to dinner on Friday night, and last night we had another celebration with all our friends. The family thing, Mekki, we went to the Schnitzel House, Haus, Schnitzel House in Erina, and it's a great place. And the wall is covered. It's like Man vs. Food. When you sit down there, I feel like Adam Richman from Man vs. Food, because that you've got to pre-order it to be able to attempt the super massive. I think it's 6 kilos of food. And
You're kidding.
No, it's crazy. There's like 2 pounds of chips and like 4 or 5 something like that, or pounds, whatever it is, of schnitzels. And the winner did it in 6 minutes. Now I ate my food normally and put my stopwatch on to see how fast and how much I'd consumed in 6 minutes. And the winner, who travels the world, flies by Learjet now, is paid to come to places. And he's a kid from the Central Coast. And he's now flown around the world to do this thing for a living. What?
Oh.
Who knew doing that was worth, flying and Learjets and being paid to do it?
Well, that's a very happy, short life. That's great.
Yeah, that's right. And the kid's a beanpole. He's not a large kid. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got worms. He's got worms.
Clearly.
Yes.
He must have a symbiont life form inside him that's eating the
He's got
food.
a python living in his stomach. Yeah, that's a... What?
Apparently...
I know.
Yep. What is it?
He's like the TARDIS, dude. He's bigger on the inside. And boom, mystery solved. Thank you very much. I can go home now.
He's a quantum physics student, clearly. No, from what I heard from the staff at the venue, is at the Schnitzel House at Erina, was that he for the couple of days leading up to it, or each one of his tasks, I suppose, he drinks a lot of water. I mean, a lot of water, maybe 6-8 liters of water, and stretches out his stomach. And he's been doing that for years, and so it doesn't really give him any grief. He could just go in there and just breathe the stuff in, and voila, he's won it, and his pictures on the wall, and if there's money involved, he gets that, and certainly there's a press, he's got a press agent, the whole thing. Crazy. I just think the whole thing is insane. Good for him though, and I was so super impressed by all the other people who survived all the way up to the last minute of the hour you get to eat this quantity of food. You know what? That's what elastic waisted pants are for.
You and your pants. I wear a muumuu.
A muumuu, a caftan. It's all about the caftan and the muumuu. I love it.
That's very true. That's very true. Cool. Oh, that's cool, dude.
So that's what we were doing. We're having a get together. I was looking in the news this week, making there's so much. One of them is the USS Ronald Reagan has docked into Brisbane. It's twofold, of course. So there's refooding, and there is also the R&R for the troops on board, working on board. Power to you guys. Well done. All your missions and being at sea for so long, I really do get it. So I always support the military and the Navy, especially. They do it pretty tough. So, but what does it mean, Meki? What does it mean to dock it in Australia? It means it's local. It's local. They're refooding here. So the biggest question that I've got is, well, why didn't they go home? Oh, because they're here. There doesn't seem to be a military exercise on at the moment that we're aware of. Maybe they're just keeping the vicinity. They're staying around here. I don't know.
Yep.
But it does raise. It raises.
Well, but that's what they do. It does. But of course, it's actually quite expensive to have to ship at sea, obviously. So you don't do that willy-nilly, and you do send it where you think you might have an impact. Where you think it might be needed. So it's a fair point. Of course, we're not privy to what that might be, but clearly something is happening.
Well, you think about what's north of us. You've got they've got Korea, North Korea, South Korea, China. There's Indonesia, which is going crazy at the moment. There's still a fight against now ISIS, I think, going into there. Why? I don't know. I just don't know. China stretches all the way above us, so this region of the world is now become a little bit more militarily active. The troops now coming into Northern Territory are increasing in numbers from the US and being trained. So, and I said last week, I think that if we saw a natural disaster, a huge world one, or any kind of outbreak in the world occurred, Australia would probably be invaded. It's a large place, and it certainly is. We have a very small population for the same. Less than a tenth of the population that's in the US, or around about a tenth, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, 10%.
For about the same landmass. So,
yes, that's important to note. Yeah, so that's very. You're right. So essentially, we've got the population of Greater New York living on the continent. That's what we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine all of New York, all the population of New York, and some Manhattan, Jersey, and all that, spread out across the United States. That's
from the tri-state area. Right mm-hmm.
Yes, that's it.
So it's something. It's important to remember that. But just because of that story, it drove me to look for this one, and this is what's been bandied around recently because I think we should be. Back in the 70s, I remember us being extremely conscious about what kind of pollutants we were leaving behind on the planet. The lake had caught fire, and we were more considered about considering what was the air pollution and the water pollution, and just allowing companies like the battery manufacturers to just dump raw, untreated chemicals into our waterways, and of course we found that was be bad. However, what we're doing now is a study had just been released, and this is about plastic. So, how many times do you buy something from the store and it's got a plastic thing keeping it still in its packaging, and it's a throwaway? It's not reused. It's not at all reused. I've got one here from a packet of screws. I mean, this could have easily just been in a bag. But this thing here that I've got here, sorry about the sound coming through the mic, but it's a packet of screws. That packet, when I'm done with it, in Australia, we put that in recycling. That's it. All of our packaging, we split it into recycling and not combustible waste, but waste that can break down. And we have green waste. So that's from our garden. So we have 3 bins: green bin, red bin, yellow bin, and we split it, and that's great. Now the recycling usually goes to some kind of local plant where they split it into, paper and plastic, aluminium and tin. And then the plastic split into its different plastic types, PET and the others. So, I mean, that's what we're able to do, and yet, in the US, though I know it's occurring there, maybe to the same extent, maybe a little better in some areas, like Santa, like the LA coastline, maybe they're a little bit more aware, I don't know. But there's only 10%, this is what the study said, 10% of plastic that's produced in the US is recycled. And the study went on to suggest the alternate places for this plastic to be, whether it's either in landfill, which is, that's not so terrible. It'll break down after, a million years or so. But it's the plastic that makes it to the ocean, which is the biggest problem, because then the fish eat it because it's the same size as the food sources. It turns into little micro spherules, and the fish eat it and think it's food, and then their stomachs fill up because they can't digest it. It just remains solid, and then they die, and we're losing parts of the food chain. So there's a whole kick-on tree effect of their this misuse of plastic. And what's going to happen to the plastic? Well, the plastic, they say, is so bad that if the ocean conveyor stopped, it would just end up filling up the oceans. We wouldn't live very long after the ocean conveyor stopped, because the northern hemisphere would freeze. But there is parts of the ocean that, because of the convection currents, the currents, it's pooling this plastic like islands. And that's where they say some of the MH17, no, the other one, 17, isn't it?
That 17 was the second one, I think. I think
300.
35.
Yeah, well,
that's
whatever
okay.
it is. 9 MRO. So that flight, some debris was found in that, surging pool of plastic. Anyway, but to move on, I want to make you conscious of the amount of plastic that's discarded, certainly into the ocean, and that's a terrible thing. And if we're not careful, we could ruin one of our food sources entirely from that. But the US isn't to blame for everything, and Australia has its own problems. One of those is the big city of Melbourne, the second largest city in Australia, and they said that they're going to run out of water by the end of the decade. End of the decade? What? Oh, we won't have any more water. No, there'll be no more water for anyone. Now, I don't really see how that's possible, but Sydney's water supply, we've gone through some tough times, Becky.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, I think water's overrated. Okay, I mean, I'm with Frank Sinatra. You know what Frank Sinatra said? He said, "I'm thirsty." Okay, so what happens? Someone gives him a glass of water. You know what he says? He says, "I'm thirsty, not dirty." Okay, so I'm with old Blue Eyes here, right? I mean, what? You need to wash now? What? If I'm thirsty, I have my whiskey. Thank you very much. I let people drink whiskey. It's okay. It's all right. Water. I mean, what's next? People want to eat now. Have water, eat. Jeez. I mean, I don't know. Free air. Oh, maybe free air to breathe, Dave. Now we get anarchy, communism. Seriously, I don't know. It's just nuts. Hey, $10,000 million, Mr. Illuminati. I'm on your page. I'm on your page. Let's tax the air. Yes, tax. Let's tax the oxygen, and let's tax the nitrogen separately. Huh? Up here for thinking. I'm sorry.
So 73% of the tax is going to go to the nitrogen owners. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Right.
I'll stop. You know what? I'm not going to breathe any more nitrogen. That's it. I'm done.
Done. All right, fine. I will breathe then. I tell you what, there was a story that Dave mentioned as well to me while we were talking about the show, and this was around Australian scientists having proven that time travel is a possibility. So now we know, mathematically speaking, the flow of time is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it goes backwards, forwards, doesn't matter. So from a purely mathematical point of view, time travel, or even from a physics point of view, is sure you can travel in time, don't knock yourself out, doesn't really matter. But now, and we've spoken about these before, the closed time-like curves, right? There was an experimental simulation, the scientists, and they conducted around the closed time-like curves. We have spoken about this in our time travel shows. Essentially, what the scientists did, they simulated the behavior of two photons interacting with each other in two different cases. The first case, one photon passed through a wormhole, okay, and then interacted with his older self. So, interacted with its older self. In the second case, when a photon travels through normal space-time, it interacts with another photon trapped inside a closed time-like curve forever. So that's like a time loop, like a Groundhog Day. Think of Groundhog Day, just to make it simple to understand. So these are now, okay, so these are simulations, of course. Now we can't create time-like curves, or closed time-like curves quite yet, but the simulation show that there is no logical or inconsistency as far as interaction in a time travel scenario is concerned. So it is a possibility. So if we could one day create a mechanism like a wormhole, travel back in time, it may not cause the illogical paradoxes that we think it might. And even if it did, and we have to remember quantum mechanics. Remember cause and effect, Dave? Do you remember what happened to cause and effect?
It's irrelevant.
Gone.
Yes.
That's right. Out the window, baby. You stumbled on a rock? No. You stumbled, and the rock just happened to be there. So, but that's what it says. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And you know what the funny thing is, Dave? And thank you for letting me share this with everybody. I went, had lunch on, I want to say Friday, with my colleagues, and we were walking down the road. And I'm talking about, I don't know, for some reason we start talking about quantum decoherence, like you do, right? And
absolutely do, yes.
Right? That's what happens. Because then people ask me, after the conversation, they asked me, well, how do you know all that stuff? I said, well, I'm not really interested in anything else. I'm a very poor public I don't know, public culture kind of guy. I don't know what popular culture is all about. Anyway, but the point is, when I was talking about it, and you know, the double slit experiment and a whole bunch of other stuff, the lady I was with, she said, that doesn't make any sense. And I said, yes, you're exactly right. It doesn't make any sense at all. None. Zero. Right? And that's what Feynman said as well. Anybody who says they understand quantum physics are lying through their teeth. And I'm not saying I understand it. I do understand what happens. Do I understand why it happens? No, because it doesn't make any sense. But if you take yourself out of a linear context, and this is really the problem with time travel, right, Dave? Because if you apply our logic to it, our context is linear, completely linear, right? We start, there's the middle, and then there's the end. So, you know, we go forward, always forward, you know, it's in one direction, it's linear. Time, as far as we're concerned, moves in one direction, which is forward, for want of a better word. You know, from the past through the present into the future. Now, that's okay from our point of view, but our point of view is very specific to us. If we didn't have this point of view, Dave, then we wouldn't have any trouble with time travel, because for us there would be no linearity, right? If we existed within our world line all at once, then we would say, what are you talking about linear? It's all here at once. I don't understand what you're talking about. And that's the funny thing. I reckon we could not have a meaningful conversation with a 5-dimensional being, and vice versa, because our reference points, our concepts, and where we are in our frame of mind are completely different. It's like someone trying to explain the color red to a person that has been blind from birth. You can't. Oh, what does it smell like? Oh, purple. What? No. So it's something that you cannot do, because you're lacking a common frame of reference. Right?
That's a very good point, Mickey. You know, there's a person who has stated, and we've interviewed him. He stated that it's possible, and he thinks that the greys or the tall greys can actually feel color.
Right.
They have now. How could they describe that color to us?
Yeah. How did they do that?
Well, that's right. How on earth would they be able to say that? There's an expression. How on earth would they be able to describe what red felt like? Because we don't feel it. It's not our frame of reference. We don't have a common contextual compatibility for that. We don't have the feeling. We can tell if something's, you know, rough or smooth, or it's sticky. We can feel those things if it's hot and cold. But we can't feel the color of something.
No, and if you take it a step further, let's take it a step further. So you come across something that you've never seen before, and that is completely outside your frame of reference. Like you can't even begin to fit it into your little box. Okay, chances are you either go mad, right, or you have a really bad headache, or you ignore it. So I reckon, in order for your mind to protect itself, you will simply filter it out, right? You will simply not be able to see it, and this is really what I think is happening all the time, all around us. So people say, no, you know, these aliens, visitors, interdimensional travelers, time, whatever they are, right? We should, you know, be seeing this and that. Well, some of us see them, quite a few of us see them, you know, they see an aspect that we can understand of them, but for the most part, especially there's interdimensional travel involved, we would simply not be able to see them. We would simply edit them out, right? And you've been in the situation yourself, guys. You have been in the situation yourself. And my favorite example, is this video on YouTube. You can all watch it. It's a group of people, and they're passing two balls around, a red ball and a yellow ball, I think, right? And then you have to count how many times the ball is passed from one person to another. That's your task. Your eye stays on the yellow ball, or you know, or whatever the task might be. But that's your focus. While you're doing that, okay, and now that I've told you, it probably won't work for you, but it did work for me. I can tell you, it didn't. There's a gorilla.
Alert.
I know, right? But there's a person in a gorilla suit walking through the group, And at the end, you probably would have counted on a 15 or 20 exchanges of the red ball, and so you're expecting a question like, the question should be, how many times did the red ball change hands? And chances are you probably get it right. That's not the question. The question is, did you see the gorilla walking through the group? And I had to say,
I didn't see it.
I did not. Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, because we are very, we've got very limited attention focus capabilities.
The focus is important, yes.
Yeah, that's right. So we're pretty poor at multitasking, but when it comes to a focused task, we tend to blend out or filter out everything that is not related to that task. And if you just happen to go to work, then your task is to go to work, and you will focus on everything that's important, like the traffic. You don't get run over, or you focus on the time, or whatever it might be, and then you might miss, and actually you do miss a whole raft of other things going on around you, and something that simply isn't part of your experiential framework would get filtered out first, because it is the most distracting, because it is so far out of your expectations. So, and this is really where we're at with this. Yes, some of us see it, and quite a few of us, but most don't. And even if you did, you wouldn't be sure if you had seen it, right? And your mind, in fact, the more focused your mind is on a specific thing, be it a worldview, the less likely, in my mind, are you able to see it. If you're a scientist that is really completely dogmatic in their approach to whatever their specific scientific thing might be, their minds are more closed off than most other people's, because they can only focus on what they know. This is their frame of reference. I don't know anything else. And if they know it really well, that makes them even more closed off. People that are open-minded tend to be, they're usually quite smart, but they're also not subject matter experts necessarily, right? They could be, but for the most part, open-minded people don't tend to limit their focus in their thinking too much, even as a career, right? You'll find a lot of artists quite open to these experiences, because it's just, for them, it's just all open. It's just, they don't have to be focused too much on very specific things. Whereas an accountant, for example, someone that has maybe a very repetitive, boring job, and maybe that's a reflection of their personality, would be very limited and couldn't see anything. So that's so all I wanted to point out here, that time travel depends on perspective and point of view and your frame of reference. It really does. For us, for most of us, time travel simply seems impossible because it doesn't fit our frame of reference, because it's our focus, right? If I go back into time, I killed my grandfather before my father was born, I'm never born. That makes sense from the way we look at the world, but it doesn't make sense from the way the world actually is, as proven, we think, by quantum mechanics. Cause and effect, out the door. Okay. Quantum entanglement. What is that? There's no space. There's no space. If there's no space, there can be no time. Therefore, even talking about time travel is completely irrelevant, because neither space nor time seem to objectively exist. They seem to be a very subjective experience that we're all having together. Okay? Oh, I've been on the soapbox now, haven't I? There you go.
Look, but Meki's absolutely right. The cause and effect thing, we can just forget. But I like that it was. I do like something about it. The Australian scientist proved that time travel is possible.
Yep.
Finally.
Even from our frame of reference. That's right.
Exactly. But you know what? The last thing I want to do is get in a time machine and end up cycling through that wormhole for the rest of my life, because I've made a mistake with my calculation and I can't escape that time hole. Right? That's just really funny to me. So let's hope they progress with that. Look, maybe they've already done it. Maybe they are going back in time and changing things already. Let's put that out there. If you're in the US, coming around about the 21st of August this year, you're going to be impressed with the solar eclipse that traverses the entire US. Luckily you happen to be there, or it's there for you. Check the internet for location details. You may have to travel to get the best view if you want to see the diamond ring. So if you know what that is and you want to see it, check the internet, or you're probably already aware of it anyway. But that is really interesting. Now, Mackie, last week I was talking about Yellowstone and the possibility of the super caldera going, or just announcing basically the quantity of earthquakes that have been there in the swarm. Well, the swarm continues, and I did some research into it, and I found that the last time that Yellowstone went off was 72,000 years ago, and because the ash was found across the US and laid down and was coreable and datable, and there it is. So that's really interesting to see. They're talking about now that scientists are trying to calm everyone down and say, what, while the current swarm is larger than the average recorded, it is by no means the largest. Farrell said, in October 1985, an earthquake swarm recorded in Yellowstone lasted for 3 months, recording more than 3,000 earthquakes. More recently, over 2,000 earthquakes were recorded in a swarm that lasted for about a month in January of 2010. So they're trying to pour some water on this fire, Mackie. That's what it sounds like. Because so far, the swarm, just to remember those numbers to compare it against, it began in June 12th. So it's only been running for 1 month, and it's 1,284 quakes so far. That was, I think, till Friday afternoon. It still is an issue that you should keep in mind. Always have a plan. The moment you've got a plan, you take away your worry. Because your worry was only based on your fear, and your fear is only about your imagination of something that may happen. So if you have a plan to deal with the things that can happen, so just write them all down, write what you do to mitigate those issues, and now you've got a plan you can work from. You don't have to worry about it. Just go and do it. That's it. So I would probably do that if I was living anywhere in the US at all. Have my plan. So whether your plan is to stay put, whether your plan is to leave, whether your plan is to stockpile food now, whether your plan is to what else is there? I don't think there's anything else. Oh yeah, build a survival bunker and set it out. Whatever it is, make your plans. I'm not saying take care of your personal affairs, because I don't think it's as imminent as it sounds. And the majority of quakes are less than 1 on the Richter scale. So to me, that sounds like, or feels like, that the caldera is filling with magma rather than it doing it's not expanding as much. And there's no data at the moment on how high that I can find that the accuracy of the data is delayed. So is the earth above the caldera expanding or rising? That would be a good indicator. Because normally you get growth and quakes, and the growth factor is, proportional to the amount of pressure there. Yeah. So just have to think about it. It's out there. It's out there in the mainstream, and if the mainstream are talking about it, you have to think about why are they trying to mention it. Why? Because it could easily get buried by all these Trump stories that are out with the Russians, and I don't really care. I don't care about all that stuff. Politics will always be politics, and politicians are usually politicians, not like Trump. He's a businessman, I don't think, who wants to fail a business, and I think the US should be run as a business, and but that's still to be seen. And certainly it would have been wound up, and voluntary administrators would have been put in place to look after it a long time ago, just like here in Australia. Just like most of the countries on the planet.
Yeah, that's right.
So, well, what's it? Chapter 19 or chapter 17 or something, 15, whatever it is in America. Chapter 21, 17. I forget.
It's a chapter.
Yeah, it's a chapter. I don't know. All the numbers sound similar to me, but yeah, it certainly would have been wound up a long time ago and someone else taken over. Probably just print. I think. What's his name, Mackie? The president, the first one to be assassinated, Lincoln.
Lincoln. Yes.
I think Lincoln's idea to print all the money that the government needs to hand out to people to get stuff done. That makes sense. That's probably the most sense that anyone's ever made ever.
But clearly, not something that the banking elite wants to happen.
And it's not something I'm endorsing either, because the last two people that did that were killed. So, no, it's all good.
So $10,000 million, please. 10,000. Look, the problem is this, though, and this is where it gets difficult. Both Dave and I, as well as most of our esteemed listenership here, are completely aware of what's going on. The great game, let's call it. Let's call it the great game.
All right.
It becomes hard to not hard to function, I guess, but it's hard to keep ignoring everything that's going on around you, right? I mean, everybody's just going on, and even if you talk to them, they don't want to know. But you yourself, and you could talk until you're blue in the face and get nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had this discussion again at work around people that change the world, and I said to them, well, most of the people that want to change the world get either burned at the stake or nailed to a cross, and that's what happens. And that's how we work. And then a couple generations later, this guy, he was actually onto something. Let's just do what he said. Maybe we shouldn't have burned him at the stake or nailed him to a cross. Too late now. And that's how we are, though, as people.
Mm-hmm.
Very change. We can't. And even if this knowledge just somehow came into everybody's brain, about fiat currency and the banking system and how it's all rigged, and maybe we're living in simulation and all that stuff, right? I reckon the vast majority of us would still be able to completely ignore it and keep on going, buying donuts and drinking, silly whip or what it's called, or having cheese in cans, things like that, right?
You got some donuts? I'll have some donuts.
I'll have donuts. It is a little bit disheartening in a way. I mean, obviously, Dave and I have our outlet here, and I guess if you're listening or in the chat, you've got your outlet by listening to this or by participating in the chat, which I encourage you to do, by the way. It's sad, though, to watch the rest of the world just keep on doing whatever it does, and it doesn't get better. It doesn't seem to get better. That worries me because I've got kids. Dave has kids, and things just aren't getting better. And if I'm right, maybe with the hypothesis, if our thinking is correct, then that's a real concern, guys. It's a real concern. We need to make some changes, right? But it's getting way too deep now, and we're here to entertain. But I do want you to think about it. How can you change the world? How can you change the world for the better? Not for the worse, but for the better. And what is your impact? Can you say hello more often, or good morning, or smile at people, or help them out, or whatever it might be? What would your contribution be to make this a better place? What could you do? I don't know, for your neighbor, for a stranger, whatever. I don't really care, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be big either. Small things matter. Small things matter a lot. They really do. Remember last time someone let you in, cut in traffic, and they waved you in? You felt pretty good, didn't you? You might have done the same thing then afterwards for someone else. Or last time someone opened a door for you. Or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Pass it on, right? So these are small but significant effects we're having. It's a chaos theory. Butterfly, webs, flaps its wings in the Amazon. There's going to be a thunderstorm in Portugal. but there are small things that add up. Anyway, we are talking, unless there are more news, Dave.
No, we're almost at the top of the hour.
Okay, we are indeed, aren't we? Look, today we're still continuing with mysteries. In fact, the next one we can start probably, Dave. But I hope my volume is coming loud and clear.
It's perfect.
It's perfect, good. It's similar to the Voynich manuscript, but you probably wouldn't have heard about this. So this shows about mysteries you probably haven't heard about. And then to close it all off, we've got a few creepy events of 2016, which we want to share with you. We'll probably get through it today. We'll finish it off today, so I think we can. So let's start with the Rohonch, which is its correct pronunciation in Hungarian. The Rohonch Codex is an illustrated manuscript book by an unknown author, with a text in an unknown language and writing system that surfaced in Hungary in the early 19th century. Again, quite similar to the Voynich manuscript, even though we can go back further with the Voynich manuscript. The book's origin and the meaning of the text and illustrations have been investigated by many scholars and amateurs, again, same thing, with no definitive conclusion, although many Hungarian scholars believe that it is an 18th century hoax. The name of the codex is often spelled Rohoncs, with a CZI, according to the old Hungarian orthography that was formed in the first half of the 19th century. This spelling has spread probably due to the Book of V. Enahuch, and today the name of the codex is written in Hungarian as Rohonci Codex. The history of the codex was named after the city of Rohonc in western Hungary, which is now Rechnitz in Austria, where it was kept until 1838, when it was donated to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences by Gustav Batanyi, a Hungarian count, together with his entire library, in fact. The origin of the codex is unknown. A possible trace of its past may be an entry in the 1743 catalogue of the Bataillon's Rohonc library, which says, Magia Imagegog, Volumen 1 in 12, which means Hungarian prayers in one volume, size duodecimo. The size and the assumable content agree with those of the codex, but this is all of the information given in the catalogue, so it may only be a hint. Since its existence became widely known, the codex has been studied by many scholars and amateurs, again, same as the Voynich manuscript, but none has succeeded in providing a widely accepted, convincing translation or interpretation of the text. It was studied by the Hungarian scholar Ferenc Toldi around 1840, and later by Pál Hunfalvi, and by the Austrian paleography expert Albert Mahl, Josef Jiříček, and his son Konstantin Josef Jiříček. Both university professors in Prague studied 32 pages of the codex in 1884 to 1885. In 1885, the codex was sent to Bernhard Jürg, a professor at Innsbruck University. Mihály Munkácsy, the celebrated Hungarian painter, took the codex with him to Paris in the years 1890 to 1892 to study it. In 1866, Hungarian historian Károly Szabó proposed that the codex was a hoax by Samuel Litráti Nemes, Transylvanian Hungarian antiquarian, co-founder of the National Chechnya Library in Budapest. He's known to have created many historical forgeries, mostly made in the 1830s, which deceived even some of the most renowned Hungarian scholars of the time. Since then, this opinion is maintained by mainstream Hungarian scholarship, even though there's no evidence connecting the codex to Samuel specifically. Dave?
Yeah, see, that's what gets me. Now, we've got some images of this on the YouTube, so have a look at it and check it out, or look at it for yourself in your own time. So Rohonc Codec. Right, so the location. The Library of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. The call number was K114, old number Magyar Codex 12. Looks like degrees, but maybe 12.1. The special permission is needed to study the codex. However, a microfilm copy is available. And the microfilm number, if you're looking for it and you happen to be there, is MF1173-II, or 2. Now, the features of this codex are such that it contains text and illustrations, and the illustrations are all uniquely created with the same if it shows a person, it shows an elongated chin protruding out horizontally. The people's hair or hats and clothing are all completely apparent. Castles are also apparent. I would date that in the maybe 15th or 14th centuries looking at it. But I don't know. I'm not an historian. Okay, the codex has 448 pages. That's a lot of pages. It's 12 by 10 centimeters. Each page size. Each one having between 9 and 14 rows of symbols. It's not text. It's text in a way But I have to tell you, when I'm looking at, I've examined all the pages that I can, and I can see that it looks like a language. I can see that some words are repeated, some characters are repeated often, and it contains, to me, when I look at it, a language. It looks like it's constructed in a language. It looks like there is grammar. It looks authentic to me. But besides the text, I should say, there's the symbols. They call it symbols, but which may or may not be letters. We don't know. It could be a symbolic language where the symbol itself has itself a meaning, and you aggregate the meanings of those symbols together into words, and that becomes a phrase. I don't know. But besides the text, there are 87 illustrations that include religious, Lyak, is that Lyak, Meki? Lyak? And military scenes. Yep. Lake, there we go. The crude illustrations, and they calls it crude, and they look like they're hand-drawn, seem to indicate an environment where Christian, pagan, and Muslim religions coexist, as the symbols of the cross, crescent, and the sun/swastika are all present, but the swastika not in the World War II sense of it. It was a very powerful symbol before the Germans took that on. Still remained powerful, but now it has a connotation behind it. The number of the symbols used in the Codex is about 10 times higher than any known alphabet. It's counted at 792 symbols. That's a lot of symbols. Meki, did you know the Chinese or Japanese symbol quantity?
I do not, but I think it's close, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty close to the same amount. But most symbols are used rarely. So the symbols in the Codex might not be an alphabet, but a syllabary or logographs, like Chinese characters, like that's what I just said. The justification of the right margin would seem to imply the symbols were transcribed from right to left, not from left to right. Sort of Hebrew does the same thing, Meki. Study of the paper on which the Codex is written shows that it is most probably Venetian paper, made in the 1530s. Bingo, Meki, I was right on. The 1500s. 100%. However, it may simply have been transcribed from an earlier source, or the paper could have been used long after it was produced. Meki, what about the language and script? Oh, hang on. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour.
Go ahead. Yes, we are.
We are. We're at the top of the hour. So despite there not being a top of the hour break anymore, since the station's everything was reset, I'm just going to say, get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website. Buy a CD of your favorite hosts' shows for a previous season. Maybe get yourself an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents on it, or maybe 75,000 seeds in a single pack, but follow your instructions carefully when donating to the station. Don't forget, also check with your local customs to see whether the gift that you can receive can be received through your customs in your country if you're living outside of the US. The number to call in if you're in the US is 347-688-2902, or if you have Skype, which almost every device these does. Oh, look, there's the middle break.
There it is. All right, don't go away. We'll be back after this break, guys.
It's always a surprise.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mick's Shiny Setup. Show number 280. 280! That's not 80 and 200. That's a lot of shows. 280. It's a lot more shows than I thought I would ever do. But it's awesome. It's great. Oh, it is. It's a great number, 280. 2020. A measly 20 shows shy of 300. 300 shows. And we're talking to you guys about some mysteries that you may not know about. Some mysteries that fall between the cracks and are in less favor than some of the more well-known mysteries. Now, everybody pretty much knows about the Voynich manuscript. We've covered it in a show cycle, a number of show cycles, in fact. But very few people know about the Rohonj or Rohonji manuscript, which is equally mysterious, in fact. Now, having said that, just before the break, and when Dave was so eloquently pointing out that you can get a whole bunch of merchandise both from the Freedom Slips side as well as our side, we were going to talk about the language and the script itself. So do go ahead to the website, get some merchandise, maybe even subscribe, $5 a month. Get you access to all past shows. Now, the language, though, of the Codex, although Hungarian, Dacian, early Romanian or Cuman, and even Hindi have been proposed, none of these hypotheses were backed with scientific proof so far. And I just want to quickly point out yet again that there is no link between the person that was meant to have perpetrated the hoax and this manuscript. So nobody can actually show a link between the manuscript and the person that was meant to have perpetrated this hoax back in the 1840s and 50s. Now, those who claim the Codex's Hungarian authenticity either assume that it's Paleo-Hungarian script, or Old Hungarian, or try to find resemblances to the Old Hungarian script, that is Hungarian Shekeli runes, which are Rovashirash. I apologize to all Hungarians for mangling that. According to others, in the Dobruja region in Romania, similar characters or symbols are engraved in Scythian monk caves. Still others try to find a resemblance to the letters of the Greek charter of the Veszprémvölgyi nunnery in Hungary. Another claims it to be a version of the Brahmi script. There's also a Sumero-Hungarian hypothesis. Attila Nyíri of Hungary, well, Hungarian of course, proposed a solution after studying 2 pages of the Codex. He simply turned the pages upside down, identified a Sumerian ligature, then he associated Latin letters to the rest of the symbols by resemblance. However, he sometimes transliterated the same symbol with different letters and vice versa. The same letter was decoded from several symbols. Then he even had to rearrange the order of the letters to produce meaningful words. The text, if taken as meaningful, is of religious, perhaps even liturgical character. Its beginning, Eljöd az Isten, Csal az Úr, O vannak Ashent, Angialok, Ashok O. And translated, it means, your God has come, the Lord flies, oh, they are the holy angels, them, oh. I'm sorry, I have to take a break, Dave. You know what this reminds me of, this particular translation? You know when you see a really badly dubbed martial arts movie, like a Chinese movie?
Yes.
And then the mouth is moving, right? Now, I can't show this to you guys, obviously, because you're listening to this, but the mouth is moving, and then he says, oh, I have to talk to you. And then the mouth is still moving, but it's like, it's like making random noises. In the Chinese original, of course, he's still talking, but the English meaning is finished. Now I have to fill it in with this is what this is, like the O, right? The Lord flies. Oh, they are the holy angels. Them. Oh. I don't know. Look, these people are really trying hard to get this going and get something translated. But if you're trying too hard, it actually loses all meaning. It's complete. In fact, the text itself, your God has come, the Lord flies. Oh, they are the holy angels. Them. Oh. Okay. Doesn't really add anything to anyone. Now, Nyíri's proposition was immediately criticized by Otto Györk. pointing to the fact that with such a permissive deciphering method, of course, one can get anything out of the code. Of course, it's the point, isn't it? I'll rearrange this and I'll make this mean that, and now it means something else because I feel that way. Also, the mere fact that Nyeri makes an uncritical allusion to the fringe theory that the Hungarian language descended from Sumerian discredits his enterprise. Now, I want to be very clear here. The Magyars, the people that migrated into what is now known, I guess, as the greater Hungarian area of Europe, came from Central Asia, the Magyars, at the same time as the Finns. So the Finns, the Magyars, and the Turks belong to the same language group. Okay, the Finns and the Magyars are not related very closely, if at all, to the Proto-European languages. Okay, neither are the Turks. They're more closely related, obviously, because they came from there, to the Central Asian Turkic languages. Right. So we believe there was some kind of event going back, maybe 1,500, 2,000 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, but I would say about 1,500 to 2,000, essentially, that occasioned a massive shift of population. First the Finns, then the Magyars, and finally the Turkic people out of Central Asia. So maybe some kind of catastrophe, a meteorite impact, I don't know, a drought, who knows? But the people moved into Europe. Okay, now Dave, tell us about the Daco-Romanian hypothesis.
Absolutely. Now, in the show notes, we have a picture here, and it's hard to it looks like it says the transcript of the traducier or traduction transcript. The cover of the V of the book itself, it says the translation has been published by Romanian philologist.
Philologist, yep.
Yep. Viorica Ignatiuk.
Excellent. Well done.
Oh, thank heavens. Oh, it's usually always a mouthful. We're reading a lot of things that are from all around the world and all these names, and I don't usually encounter them until I read it. So apologies. She claims that the text is written in the vulgar Latin dialect of Dacia, and that the direction of the writing is right to left, top to bottom, so bottom to top. The alleged translation indicates that the text is an 11th to 12th century CE history of Vlachi or Vlach, the people in their fight against Hungarians and Pechenegs, all toponyms and hydronyms appear as Arid, Dridu, Olbia, Inu, Raru, Dinesta, and Tisa. Diplomatic contacts between Vlad and Alexis Comnenus, Constantine Ducas, and Robert of Flanders are also mentioned. There's a lot of quotations, and here's one of them. So, Sol Urgerso, I'm going to do it no justice whatsoever. But it says, "O son of the live, let write what spanned the time." That's very interesting. It says that I'd like to write about the time since we've last spoken. This next one does look very Latin, doesn't it, Meki?
Yes.
Titi lis vivit neg livlu itia Neteren Titus Sinaris Immer Orast Usen, translated as "in great numbers, in the fierce battle, without fear go as a hero, break ahead with great noise, to sweep away and defeat the Hungarian." On one hand, she proposes or the proposition can be criticized for the method of transliteration. Symbols that characteristically appear in the same context throughout the codex are regularly transliterated with different letters, so that the patterns in the original code are lost in the transliteration. On the other hand, it's criticized as a linguist and historian. She provided the only linguistic source of hitero. So that's not right. Hitherto, unknown state of the Roman language, and her text, even with her glossary, raises so serious doubts both in its linguistic and historic authenticity that they render her work unscientific. Oh, here we go again. She's probably right. There is no relation between the illustrations of the manuscript of clear Christian content and her translation. But Mekki, talk about the Brahmi Hindi hypothesis.
Sure. Another alleged solution was made by the Indian Mahesh Kumar Singh. He claims that the codex is written left to right, top to bottom, with a so far undocumented variant of the Brahmi script. He transliterated it, so it's far, and so it's a Brahmi script, but you don't know about it because we haven't documented it. So that's it. Shut up. Anyway, he transliterated the first 24 pages of the codex to get a Hindi text, which was translated to Hungarian. His solution is mostly like the beginning of an apocryphal gospel, which means previously unknown, with a meditative prologue, then going on to the infancy narrative of Jesus. According to Mahesh Kumar Singh, the upper two rows of page 1 go like, Hey, Bhagwan Lok, Bahut Garib, Yahan Bima Aur Buke Hai. Inku itni sakti aur himat do taki ye apne karmo ko pura kar sake. In English, I'm assuming that's true. Oh my God, here the people is very poor, ill and starving. Therefore give them sufficient potency and power that they may satisfy their needs. Apart from the poor grammar, I guess that is a fair translation. Singh's attempt was immediately criticized in the next issue of the same journal. His transliteration completely lacks consistency and is generally considered a hoax. There's also an Old Hungarian alphabet hypothesis. And Marius Adrian Oanchea considers that the codex focuses on New Testament-related topics. The language of the codex is Hungarian, and the words are encoded in a version of the Old Hungarian alphabet, also known as Csekeli Rovasírás or Csekeli Magyar Rovas. And that, my friends, is the Rohansh Codex. We've got more on the Rohansh Codex. In fact, an article that deals with it, which I want to share with you as well. But it's really, look, Dave, I find it interesting, right? It's an interesting piece of work here. And I find it interesting that people go about translating it from very different perspectives. But what I mean by that is some people try to concentrate on the text, others try to ascribe meaning to the text before they've translated it, so they can try to give it a historical context. Others come with the text already there and try to fit the existing text into the Rohansh Codex. So it's I don't know, it's if I had the time, I would love to sit down both with the Voynich manuscript and the Rohansh Codex. I'll be honest, it'd be awesome. I think it'd be time well spent. So if anybody wants to give me $10,000 million, this is how I would spend my time. Now let's talk about the article though. I'm gonna see if there's any words. No, it's all pretty good. So I'll take the first couple of paragraphs, and then there shouldn't be anything that makes us trip up, I hope. And I do apologize for all native Magyar speakers. We made a right mess out of your fine language. I'm so sorry. The Voynich manuscript is an archaic but well-known book written in an unknown language, accompanied by primitive illustrations about unknown topics. But it is not the only book that fits the description, as we've said. The same can be said of a book currently housed in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, now known as the Rohansh Codex. Some scholars believe the codex, named after the city of Rohansh, like we said, to be genuine and have spent years trying to decode the text and illustrations, while others believe it to be a deliberate hoax, but nothing has been proven certain. The codex first possibly appears in history in 1743 in a catalogue of a Rohansh library where, despite nobody being able to read it, it is categorized as a prayer book. And sorry, just going to time out. Whenever we don't know something, it has to have a religious context, right? Göbekli Tepe, clearly a religious site, 100%. Oh yeah, if we don't know it, oh, it's a prayer wheel. Okay, the mechanism of Antikythera, yeah, it's clearly some kind of a god computer. You know, it's no, guys, no. We always do that. Sometimes it is not related to religion. Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying. But it is not definitive that the book described here is the Codex, and not some other prayer book actually written in a contemporary Hungarian language. Okay, so there's a reference in the catalog, right? It's called a prayer book, but we don't know if that reference is actually to this Rohanch book. Now I'm taking the next paragraph, Dave, and you will thank me. The Codex definitely enters history in 1838, so that's the first mention we can be certain of. When a Hungarian nobleman living in England, Gustav Batyani, donated his entire library, as we said earlier, of books to the Academy, and the Codex was included with the rest. The Codex is included in the catalog of his library, but there's no information about the book's origin or history before Batyani, or before the family had it. If Batyani was questioned about the Codex and he provided concrete information about the document's origin, that information is lost in the history of the Codex, Dave.
Over the years, the Codex has repeatedly stumped researchers in their attempts to translate the Codex into modern language. As early as 1840, the book was examined by Hungarian scholars to no avail. Other attempts in 1884 and 1890 resulted in dead ends. Sections of the Codex are available on the internet for amateurs wanting to try to solve the mystery themselves. Claims of forgery and hoax began as early as 1860. Wow. That's before the other attempts. That's 20 years after it was found. When researchers stated the Codex was actually written by Samuel Literati Nims, in 1796, that's when he lived, 1842. An antiquarian, that'll do, an antiquarian, known to have, I made up a word, that's a new one, to have concocted multiple forgeries and spurious documents and books. Attempts to definitely link Nimes to the Codex, however, have been unsuccessful, despite the fact that Nimes was connected to other known forgeries created during the period of time the Codex was found. One interesting fact that is known to be true, the paper used to create the Codex dates back to the 16th century in Italy. That's very interesting. The Codex is almost 450 pages long and contains about 90 cartoon-like illustrations, both battle and Christian themes, as we mentioned before. The number of individual alphabetic letters in the text Codex is far more than the number of known archaic languages of the time and locale of Hungary, even. It is not clear if the text is to be read right to left or left to right, although that seems to have been already determined. Researchers have tried in vain to link up the character of the Codex to known alphabets of history. Everything from manual code breaking to computer software have been unsuccessful. Well, actually, that doesn't make it terrible. In fact, if you're into codes, I've got one on Shiny Slate Out, and if you break it, there's instructions. All right. For blasphemous Buddha, this is the ROHONC Codex. I'll say it again, ROHONC Codex. The parallels to the above-mentioned Voynich manuscript are readily apparent in side-by-side comparisons. Both are written in cryptic codes or languages, and both give tantalizing hints of subject matter by way of equally cryptic illustrations. For me, Mackie, I don't see the illustrations as being anything near cryptic. I think if you could read the text, the illustration would make perfect sense. But the work goes on in the hopes that the code could be cracked and the puzzle of the codex could be solved. A future researcher or computer program may be the key to unlocking the secrets of the codex.
You know, I actually thought about this. So obviously, what foils us here to some extent is obviously the ability to process information quickly. And if we had a computer program that could analyze the text in holistically, as a total gestalt, and then also look at each single symbol, as it were, and then it might be able to assign it a semantic or even other meaning. So it's really. I think it's a question of processing power. So once we come up with a really good deciphering or even translation program for written text, I'm talking about, this could be really, really worthwhile doing, in my opinion. Now, having said all of that, I'm sure see, the thing is this, Dave. I'd love to go down into the Vatican Library or places like that.
Oh
and see
boy, yes.
what they have, right? And maybe they have books that are like keys to these books here. And I forget now the name. There was this stone that was found. Rosetta. Mm-hmm. Rosetta stone. Which had Latin and a form of Greek, I think, and then some other language.
All describing the same text, so it was easy to translate.
Yeah, hieroglyphics. That's right, hieroglyphics. That's right.
Yeah.
You can only translate the hieroglyphics because of the Rosetta Stone. So there must be things like that, obviously, because these languages at some point were coexisting, and there would have been translation catalogs because people would just do that, right? I mean, they would look. Make no mistake, trade existed in the darkest antiquity, right? And in the really, in the dim recesses of time. But something a little lighter, I guess, or maybe darker, depending on your point of view. We've collected here the 4 creepiest unexplained events of 2006. Some of them are Australia focused, not necessarily though, and the first one is certainly a global phenomenon. Because we thought it's interesting to see. I mean, these mysteries are still happening all around us every day, every year, right? So these are the creepy clowns on the rise. Creepy clowns. Do you remember that, Dave? That creepy.
I remember
the clown.
That. Mm-hmm.
That sort of it went away, I guess, right? Or maybe not. I haven't heard anything. Now, with everything else that was happening that year, it was easy to forget that in 2016, all of us collectively were invaded by creepy, vaguely threatening clowns. And in case you missed that, oh God, why are the clowns here? And why won't they stop staring? The whole clown thing, right? The whole clown thing started back in August, when multiple reports of creepy clowns trying to lure children into the woods at night emerged out of Greensboro in North Carolina. While even one is fairly alarming, this was a case of 3 sightings happening within 2 days. People, understandably, began to get a little creeped out. Unfortunately, it did not stop there. Later that month, South Carolina was targeted too in a city called Greenville, oddly enough, with residents of a gated community warned about lurking clowns and security being tightened around the area. The reports only escalated through September and October, leading up to Halloween, of course, which then made its way to Australia, where Perth and Victoria appeared to become hotbeds of clown activity. A clown was arrested in West Australia after chasing a group of teenage girls down a Perth street. The clowns started getting organized, rallying under clown purge groups on Facebook. And then Halloween came, and perhaps predictably, they all just disappeared. Thank God. Was it just a case of people jumping on a convenient way to terrorize other people, or was there some more sinister clown plot going on? We don't know. And hopefully, we'll never really know.
Indeed. Look, if you remember this one, this was really interesting, and we did speak about this as a news item when it came up, and this is the Tromps. The Tromps. No, not the Trumps, but the Tromps. It's a family. You may have followed this tumultuous story of the Tromp family as it happened, but if this is the first thing you're hearing about it, you're in for a wild ride. One day in August, the Tromp family of 5, husband and wife, Mark and Jacobo, and their 3 adult children, Rihanna, Mitchell and Ella, got into their car and drove away from their home in Melbourne with little warning, heading north. Passports, credit cards and mobile phones had all been left behind at their house. aside from the phone belonging to Mitchell, the son, he brought it along, but barely 30 kilometers into their drive was pressured to throw it out of the car window as they went along. The family was apparently paranoid, worried that the phone was being used to track them, that someone was after them or wanted to kill them. They drove 800 kilometers away from their home to the town of Bathurst in New South Wales. Driving for an entire day and night, it was in Bathurst that Mitchell left the rest of his family, parting ways at 7 a.m, and the next morning, that's when it was. The other four continued on to Jenolan Caves. I've been there, it's a lovely place. Here, the two sisters, Rihanna and Ella, stole a car and parted ways with their parents, driving south to Goulburn. It was there that the two sisters made a report that their parents were missing, before the two of them split again. Ella left to go home, arriving back at their farm on Tuesday night, and finding police there, investigating. She was the first Trump to be successfully located, followed by Mitchell, who caught a series of trains to arrive home on Wednesday morning. The other three were still missing. A Goulburn man driving to Canberra on the Tuesday made a strange discovery when he felt something kicking the back of his seat. When he stopped to look, he found Rihanna Trump curled up in his ute in a catatonic state. She apparently had no idea either where or who she was, let alone how she got there. He delivered her back to Goulburn police, who delivered her into psychiatric care at Goulburn Hospital. Her sister Ella, meanwhile, was charged with the theft of the car they took from Jenolan to Goulburn. The two parents are still missing, however. In an interstate search kicked off for Mark and Jacoba Tromp, they had been driving back towards Melbourne, but became separated in the town of Wangaratta. Jacoba somehow managed to get herself to the town of Yass, where she was found the next day, 350 kilometers away. She too was taken for psychiatric care and eventually moved to be with her daughter at Goulburn. But there was still one Tromp left to be found, Mark, the father, who had been spotted a few times behaving erratically. First, he had dangerously tailgated another car at Wangaratta, before being seen fleeing from the silver Peugeot the family had taken on the trip, leaving the keys in the ignition. The search ramped up after a night of heavy rain in the area, with rivers becoming swollen and searchers becoming worried about Mark's well-being. He was eventually found on the Saturday, almost a week after the whole ordeal began. He was located by a road near the Wangaratta airport. So why did he do it? Why did they do it? Investigators believe that the family were never in any danger from any outside party, and they weren't found to be under the influence of drugs, nor did any of them have any previously diagnosed mental health problems. The most likely fact would be that it was some kind of shared delusion, though even the family didn't really know exactly what had happened. As Ella said, when she and her brother faced the press outside the family farm, there's no one reason for it. It's bizarre, unquote. Meggie, that is one of the most bizarre stories ever, isn't it?
I know it certainly is, especially now that the family. Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb here because this is the shiny side out and this is a tinfoil hat zone. But to me it sounds to some extent as possession. I know this is it's not a very popular or common thing these days anymore, but it does sound like it because they acted completely out of character. They were doing things that didn't make any sense, and afterwards they can't explain their behavior. So the question is now, okay, so drugs have been ruled out now, unless it's some very new kind of sophisticated mind control drug. Could it be psychotronic? Could it be a psychotronic? What I mean by that is an artificial kind of possession, like by a machine intelligence, for example, right? I'd like to talk to Solaris on that. but it does have every hallmark of a possession, losing control of what you're doing, and then afterwards having no idea why you did it in the first place, because none of this actually makes any sense, right? I mean, if afterwards, it didn't even help them in any way. I mean, they're not now that everybody thinks they're crazy. So if they wanted some notoriety, this isn't the way to go about it. And it seems that the two women, the mother and the daughter, actually had to undergo psychiatric care, meaning they were upset. They had suffered some trauma. She was catatonic, it says. Catatonic, meaning completely unresponsive, right? So what brings that about? And again, in my mind, it does sound like they were written by some other entity or entities for whatever purpose, I don't know. Clearly, they were going all over the countryside. I mean, they traveled hundreds of kilometers, guys, like literally hundreds of kilometers. In a matter of days, and in fact, I would actually probably close to 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers, over 2,000 kilometers all up, and separated. They separated for no apparent reason. It is a very strange thing, but I don't want you guys to dismiss the possession theory that I've just put forward. Again, is it possession by a malevolent entity? Is it something by machine mind? Like a psychotronic, I don't know. But Dave, I can't see any other reason, or I can't see any other explanation that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Oh no, completely. Look, my first thought was drugs, maybe LSD or something like that.
Yeah,
they all had a delusion.
Yeah.
I think that was my first thought. Now that the police have ruled it out, they've obviously done some medical tests on them and come up with nothing. The next craziest thought is the reason why they couldn't speak about it was because maybe there was, like a secret service or a 3-letter agency or something as part of it. And to leave your money behind, your mobile phones behind, means that it was an urgent thing that you got out. Now the only reason he had a phone, maybe because it was in his pocket, and they didn't realize. Or they didn't want to be tracked, or maybe they received a message on their phones saying, I don't know. I just don't know. The third thing on there, outside of the obvious, the drugs, the 3-letter agencies, would be then, why not aliens? Why not?
Why not? Why not?
I know. Because if they don't seem to remember anything, and some of those things seem to match the description of other maybe abductees or involvees. Maybe someone has, for some reason been required to go somewhere. Imagine if something like not just a 3-letter agency, but maybe someone that went rogue. Like what was that movie? The trio movie, Mekki? Matt Damon.
The Bourne Identity.
Yeah, Bourne Identity. So imagine if this guy turns up simply, into their lives somehow, and he goes, "You've got to get me to such and such." Leave everything behind. It's fine. And so he was the 5th member in the car or something. I don't know. So I can only imagine, Mekki, that there was something there. Will we ever know?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe they've signed their lives away that they can't talk about it.
I'd love to look, Dave. I don't see. This is in Australia. It's in. I mean, where are they?
It's not like it's in America, where I'd imagine that kind of activity to take place. But here, why not?
They're in Melbourne, right? I mean, we could make our way down to Melbourne and see if they would be amenable to an interview, right? I mean, it's been a year.
Yeah, completely. Yep.
Let's get this. I mean, look, this is something we're going to take on advisement, guys. We'll see if we can bring that to you. I'm sure it'd be interesting. It'd be definitely, because see, this is how these kinds of things start. Like, I'm reminded of these ship mysteries or deserted ships, like the Marie Celeste and others, right? Where everything seems to have been left on the ship, right? So even the food, the lifeboats. In fact, in some cases, even the mascot, right? The mascot. Now think of that. See, the mascot is in fact something that you would never leave behind on a ship, be it a parrot or a cat or a dog, because that's your good luck. You never leave. And sailors, back, especially in those days, but even today, are superstitious like you wouldn't believe. Okay, they really are very superstitious folk. So again, it comes to mind. This is a very similar scenario. Just leave everything behind and just go. Go where? Go where? Right. This is the question. Seems to be okay. Well, you can't hear me.
That was it. Listen, for everyone out there who's listening on radio, if you go to the chat room, we actually are now streaming live audio and video, as well as it going to our YouTube channel. It's now going to the chat room, so that now you can interact with the other people who are listening to it live in the chat room. Oh,
they lost you.
Yeah, okay. I have so many things that I have to choose here. I think it's
Work in
going to be
progress.
this one. Yeah, it is a work in progress. That should now have both of us. All right.
We're talking cutting edge technology here, right?
Yeah,
Nighthawk, awesome job.
Yeah.
Awesome job.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the thing. This is the thing, Mekki. That the whole situation around missing persons, and I want to bring up David Paulides. His missing 411. He's been doing studies on it. I just don't know. I don't think we're going to know, and it is one of those mysteries. It is a mystery.
Well, is it possible? I mean, because these disappearances and erratic behaviors are not uncommon, especially larger ones are less common, but certainly small ones. Is it some kind of electromagnetic disturbance? Right? I mean, people up and go missing national parks, like you said, missing 411. But there's another disappearing story. That's a great segue, and this is around disappearing shipwrecks, guys. And this is really very strange. How do 74-year-old shipwrecks just up and disappear from the ocean floor? That's exactly what happened in Indonesia in 2006, when the wrecks of 3 Dutch warships sunk in World War II were found to be missing from their previously known locations. Obviously, it's a. I don't have a speaker icon next to me. I can see that. I don't have a camera icon there either. Interesting.
No,
I'm on an Apple.
I've got it next to mine because I'm throwing the feed out, Mekki.
Oh, so that's fine. That's
it's
cool.
My one.
Okay, but also be aware that I'm on an Apple machine. Yeah, exactly. Now Rara is streaming, so I'm running through Dave's network. Anyway, let's go back to these shipwrecks. Now, obviously, these shipwrecks, the locations, people like to go diving there, and in fact, the wrecks, which are the HNLMS De Ruyter, the HNLMS Java, and the HNLMS Cortenair, were first found in 2002 by amateur divers, with all sites being declared war graves. The ships collectively had taken down 915 Dutch and 259 Indonesian soldiers when they fell victim to the Japanese fleet. And there's an image here in our show notes of one of the battleships. In November 2006, not that far long ago, guys, the Dutch government confirmed that all 3 had simply disappeared from the seabed. Ship salvage experts weighed in on the mystery, saying that any attempt to move entire warships that had been sunk for 3/4 of a century would be a massive operation, not one easily hidden from the authorities. Even theories that the ships had been torn apart and stripped for salvage didn't quite, excuse the pun, hold water.
Oh.
And a number of other possible fates for the shipwrecks were suggested. Storms, swells, tsunamis, or even a shift in tectonic plates could have been to blame, though a shipwreck of this sort would have been incredibly difficult to budge by most means. So, in absence of any other explanation, aliens. This is really strange. It's strange, isn't it? I think this is really strange. That's very odd.
Well, look, my first thought would be a salvage worked for the steel. Why not? But if if 75 years old, that thing's just going to fall apart, and I couldn't imagine. I just could not imagine there being nothing left. Nothing.
But it'll be a huge operation, and surely there should be some kind of satellite footage, right, of it. I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
well,
tell us about what can you do? Tell us about the contagious hallucinations.
Oh, I like these. It seems to have been for a year. Sorry, it seems to have been a year for strange shared psychosis, with another example cropping up at an Oregon hospital in October. A woman was taken to said hospital after police were called to her house. She claims she had seen strangers on the roof of her car. After 2 call-outs, the police realized that she was suffering from hallucinations and took her to the hospital. She was soon after discharged and left to go about her business, cleared of any illness or substance use. That's where it starts to get weird. 2 police officers who had picked her up to take her to the hospital also began suffering from hallucinations, closely followed by similar symptoms appearing in the woman for whom the original patient was a caretaker. After the older woman was hospitalized, one of the nurses attending her was also struck by mysterious hallucinations. Was this a case of direct contagious hallucination? Whatever it was, the hospital was placed under quarantine and hazmat was called. Standard procedures applied. Everything was sterilized, washed and examined in an effort to identify the cause, but nothing could be found. There were no drug or even any other anything else strange found in blood samples. No contaminants were found before the quarantine was eventually lifted with no real answers. I think what we really discovered in 2016 is that human brain is weirder and more terrifying than anything the natural or supernatural world can throw at us. Mekki, when I hear about this case, could you imagine if it was the psychotronic programming or a psychotronic beam or something like that, which maybe was in a way, a form of bacteria or through touch, or maybe it was an entity trying to contact people as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Look, I completely agree. This is all possible. Now, what worries me is the fact that, okay, we've learned about this one here in Oregon, and obviously the one earlier we spoke about in Australia. So these are 2 cases we know for sure happened in 2016. Right? We know this, right? There they are. Mm-hmm. This is what happened. We don't know what happened, and we don't know how it happened. We don't know why it happened. But we do know that it happened. Mm-hmm. What worries me is, to get to my point, is how many cases we don't know about. Simply because they're just not reported upon, because they happen in a far out of the way place, or there's more pressing news, or it just doesn't get the reporting it needs, or it's completely misdiagnosed and the person is locked up, or whatever, right? So this is really very interesting. And you're right. I mean, what is this? I mean, clearly it does seem like some kind of contagious thing. So is it a haunting again, right? Or is it? I saw a sci-fi movie once, I think, where there was an alien bacterium, or it might have been a Star Trek episode, that affected the mind. Yeah, this is the kicker, and maybe it's a bacterial infection, which causes hallucinations. I would like to know what the hallucinations were. So apparently there were strangers on the roof of a car. That's the original woman, right? That was taken away. I would love to know if the hallucinations were the same.
Included those same strangers.
Right, exactly, right? Now, it says it was closely followed by similar symptoms.
Oh.
Right? Now, does it mean they saw these 2 people, I don't know, on the car? Or see, again, if it's a common thing, then you have to ask yourself, well, what is it? Because they didn't all communicate with each other necessarily, right? To be able to partake in the same hallucination. Even if you convince your own mind that that you should see it because she told you, this might not necessarily be the case. So this is very, very strange. It was bad enough. We have to realize this. It is bad enough, or was bad enough, for hazmat to be called in. Hazmat. So if you've got Ebola outbreaks or Marburg or anything like that, or maybe like some kind of anthrax scare, right? You call a hazmat. Right? That's what you call it. Call a hazmat unit, meaning that's a team that can deal with hazardous material, whatever it is, like an acid or gas or bacteria or a biological substance, doesn't really matter. Hazmat comes in and they do what they do, except they didn't find anything. So this is the second instance last year, where something happened which clearly screwed with people's minds, and we could find no trace of it. Is this, Dave? Is this a test case? Is this a test bed? Is this, maybe it is psychotronic? Is this a test to see what they can do to us? Right?
I know. I absolutely get it. Maybe it is. I've got another possibility. Maybe these entities were only visible because they were slightly in phase. Maybe they were intentionally trying to be out of phase. Maybe they weren't hallucinations at all. Maybe they followed the lady because she could see them. Maybe it was their, maybe they had a technology that allowed them to be out of phase, but it was failing on them. They couldn't understand that. I just don't know. It's very strange. It's such a high strangeness event of being able to move a hallucination to one to the next.
Yeah.
I think it's an extraordinary event.
And the reason we did this show, the last two shows, guys, is really to highlight the fact that yes, we have talked about historic mysteries mostly, but these mysteries are unfolding all the time. It's an ongoing spectacle, if you will, of mysteries happening all the time with no explanation. So we've got two cases here of clearly where something went wrong in people's minds. There's another case of fairly large objects simply disappearing, okay, and yet another case of like a very strange behavior, and I still haven't got an explanation as to why those clowns appeared. I mean, in the initial ones at least. I mean, you can always argue that the following clowns were simply copycats, but it is a time of high strangeness, and I think it's this high strangeness that's with us all the time, right? So we just tend to ignore it, or we tend to not worry about it, but we should. Because what happened to the Trumps and then these people in Oregon, that's something that should really concern all of us. It's no small thing to just up and go and be paranoid and just leave everything behind or have hallucinations. It's not a small thing, it's a big thing. And how do you explain the 3 warships disappearing? I mean, seriously, right? It's a fairly large operation, like these salvage experts told us. So, again, I'm not saying there aren't innocent explanations for this, sure. But by the same token, we should not disregard it, put it in a box and say, oh, mysterious, too hard to deal with. No, we should make every effort to investigate what happened here. This is highly mysterious stuff. And, the funny thing is this, Dave, when the first Malaysian flight, this is now 5 years ago, I think, right? Uh-huh. It disappeared. There was a big hoo-ha. And I tell you what, guys, we haven't solved that mystery. We have not solved that mystery. Mm-hmm. That the flight, yes, it's gone, but we haven't gotten any closer to finding anything from that flight or explaining what happened to it. Nothing. Zero. Okay? But again, it's now entered, I guess, our mythology in a way. The disappearing Malaysian. Well, it has, right? Because we haven't got an explanation. There are other cases where things have happened. And, well, people lost interest. We simply couldn't go any further because this is as far as we can go. We can no longer investigate anything else. We just don't know. Imagine how much harder it is to investigate things that are thousands of years old. And how much easier it is to simply call it religious or this, put it in a box. I mean, clearly, we've got issues explaining mysteries that are happening right under our noses in real time right now. How much harder is it to explain them when they happened thousands of years ago? And how much easier is the temptation to give into to simply categorize them as religious or, give it any kind of box and then just forget about it because you've dealt with it. Once you've classified it, it's dealt with. Okay, done. Whoosh. Right? Patrick English, yes, just said something very appropriate in the chat room. Mm-hmm. It's a Charles Fort world. Yes. Charles Fort, if you don't know, was a gentleman of American or U.S. origin who went around and investigated and collected mysteries and strange phenomena and strange doings. There are a few houses of mystery in the world that were inspired by him. There's one in Orlando, in fact, on International Drive, if you should get the chance to go and see it. And there are other places where like really strange creatures, strange raining cats and dogs, toads and stones, things like that. And yes, so Charles Fort has coined these. He had a magazine called Law, Law, and 40 Times, which is a British publication, is named after him. And that's okay. Next week we're gonna talk about the Black Knight satellite mystery.
Oh, I love that one. Okay, stay tuned for a roundtable if it's available. I'm not sure if it's still going. So, but anyway, see you next week for show 281. Take care, everyone.